Okay, you've planted roses in your garden, 5 years has gone by, and now you decide you want to move some. This is one of the scariest things anyone ever has to do with roses, is moving an established rose bush. It's actually a lot easier than you think. Here's the key. Think bare root rose. That's really all you're going to do. You're going to take the rose up, wash off the soil, and replant it like a bare root rose. Now, if you think that this is something you can't do, well, think about what this rose has been through before it got here. It was probably planted in California, Texas, in the fields, grown for 2 years, dug up, thrown on a truck, put in cold storage for 2 or 3 months, then trucked across the country to your garden, where it arrived, you soaked it in water, and then you put it in the ground. Now, if this rose can do that, this rose behind me can make it across my yard. The rose we have here is the great bourbon rose, Madame Itzhak Pereire. It's been in my garden probably 10 to 12 years now. It's an own-root rose, very well established, but I need to move it. We're making some room for a vegetable garden, and I want to expand it a little bit, and I think I've got a better place where it's going to be happy. The first thing you want to do is you want to cut the rose down to about 2 feet high. This is regardless whether it's a shrub, whether it's a climber, whether it's a bush, doesn't make any difference. Just go ahead and get it down to about 2 feet high. So start with your clippers. I'm not trying to be artistic here. All I'm trying to do is just take off a lot of the top. First, it's going to make it easier to work with. Second of all, when I dig this up, I'm going to have a lot less roots than the rose has now. So what I need to get is a rose on the top that's proportional to the rose on the bottom. Once we're done with this, we can do some fine-tuning later. Notice I'm not looking for outward-facing bud eyes. I'm just not worrying about it. I'm just trying to get it cut back so I can manage. Okay, we're ready to dig it. Now that we've got the rose cut back to about 2 feet high, what we're going to do next is actually dig it up out of the ground. What I find works the best is just a simple shovel with a point. This allows you to drive down into the ground, and this will help sever the roots, which is really what we're trying to do right now, because we're not going to be able to get all the roots with it. I start by just taking a circle straight down into the ground, about 8 inches or so away from the base of the plant. And you just make that circle completely around the rose. At the same time, you can see I just kind of gently rock the shovel. I'm trying to just loosen the soil, loosen the roots a little bit, and get up underneath it. In the production fields in Texas and California, this would actually be done with a bare root rose lifter, which is like a blade that goes underneath it and heaves it up out of the ground. It severs the roots underneath, and that's exactly what we're trying to replicate here. So at this point, I can feel it. You can already see it coming up, and then I should be able to, at some point, reach in there and grab it. And there it is. Now that the rose has been dug up out of the ground, I'm going to do some cleaning on it. Probably a much better cleaning than I normally would do, because this is a good opportunity. First thing I want to do is take out some of the older canes. 2 reasons for this. First of all, what's going to happen is it's going to push new growth from the base of the plant. And I want that fresh, new, vigorous growth, because this rose is going to go through some shock, even though we're trying to be as careful as we can. The second reason for taking out some of the old canes is, again, remember what I talked about earlier? I want to make sure that the base of the plant, the roots, is equal to roughly the top. I've got a bit of proportion. 2 to 1, that would probably be okay. By taking out some of this old growth, that puts less demand on the roots to generate the food and sugars and bring up the waters that this rose is going to need to pull out of what's a pretty shocking period. So what I've got here is a very, very old cane right here. I'm going to do this with hand clippers. Ideally, I do it with loppers. But if you work it hard enough, you can. If I just take out this whole old piece right here, what I am left with now is a rose that is much, much, much smaller in terms of the top. And I'll even probably bring it down just a little bit more. Get out some of that thin growth, like that. And that's perfect. I'm comfortable with that. I've got not a lot of top. It's fresh, clean growth at the base. I do have a reasonably good root system. So what I have now is a rose that basically looks like a bare root rose, and I can plant it the exact same way. Okay, Madame Isaac's in the ground in her new home. She's going to be fine. I'm not worried about this. I've moved hundreds and hundreds of roses this way. What you do have to do, though, is diminish your expectations this year. She's not going to bloom the way she has in the past. She's been through some shock. If I get 50% of the bloom, I'll be very happy with that. And that'll be good for me. Now, the other thing I want you to do is just remember what we did. All we did was cut the tops back to about 2 feet high. Basically, dug a circle around the plant, gently using the shovel as a pry to get the rose up out of the ground, shook off the roots. Once we were done with that, then what did we do? We just took off a couple of dead canes and some old twiggy kind of growth just to try to, again, lessen the amount of top so it's more equal to the roots, about 2 parts top, 1 part root, that's the important thing to do. Lastly, let's talk about when to do this. The best time to do this is if you have a dormant season, which we do here in the upstate of South Carolina, is right before the forsythia start to bloom. That means spring is on the way. The rose doesn't have to sit in this state very long before it's already beginning to push out new growth and new vigor and new roots, and that's important. If you have to move a rose during the summertime, or if you live somewhere where they don't go dormant, you can do it this way by cutting it back, take all the leaves off, and there's some other ways you can do it as well, and we'll talk about that in a different video. If you enjoyed this video, thanks for watching it. Come visit us at www.ashdownroses.com for all other kinds of rose information. And remember, enjoy your roses and have fun. Thanks. Bye.